The wind was merciless, cold, almost as if the universe wanted to remind you how alone you were. Sitting on the railing of the empty bridge, you looked down at the raging river below. It looked peaceful from a distance, but you knew better. Much like life, it appeared calm, but the moment you let yourself go, it would swallow you whole. Tears blurred your vision as you clutched the crumpled paper in your hand. Your end was inevitable, whether by fate or by choice. You wouldn't be around much longer. So you wish I was dead, Suho? You whispered to the wind. I wonder how happy you would be if I just disappeared tonight. You planning to jump or just enjoying the view? Your entire body tensed. The voice was deep, laced with something unreadable. No pity, not concern, just curiosity. You turn your head sharply. A man stood a few feet away, his black coat billowing slightly in the wind. He was leaning against the railing, looking at you as if you were nothing more than an interesting sight of his late night walk. His hands were tucked into his coat pocket, his face unreadable under the dim glow of the street lights. He was breathtaking in an unsettling way, sharp jawline, piercing eyes, and a presence that felt dangerous. You quickly wiped your tears, glaring at him. What do you care? I don't. He shrugged. Just seems like a bad night to die. Your breath caught in your throat. The way he said it, so casually as if and was nothing but a passing thought, sent a shiver down your spine. Go away, you muttered, turning back towards the river. There was silence for some time. You thought he had left, but then, you're crying. People don't usually cry before dying, they just jump. You clenched your fist. I said, go away. He exhaled as if debating whether to continue this conversation. Then, in a softer tone, he asked, so who broke you? Your head snapped towards him. His expression was neutral, but his eyes, there was something knowing in them, as if he already had the answer but wanted to hear it from you. No one. You lied. He hummed, clearly not believing you. Let me guess. He tilted his head. Husband? Your heart stopped. His eyes flickered to your bare ring finger. Took it off, huh? He chuckled darkly. Not surprising. Men don't usually wish their wives dead unless they are tired of them. Your blood turned ice cold. How did he? You stared at him, every nerve in your body suddenly on high alert. Who are you? You asked. Your voice was barely above a whisper. He simply smiled, not a kind one, a knowing one, just a stranger passing by. He took a step closer, his presence was overwhelming. But you're not a stranger to me. Your breath hitched. What? But don't worry, he cut you off, his voice dropping lower. I don't know you personally, just people like you. I see them all the time. The ones who give too much and get nothing in return. The ones who stay even when they are not wanted. The ones who break and no one notices. He swallowed hard. He leaned slightly forward, his dark eyes locking onto yours. So tell me, are you really thinking about jumping? Or do you just want to be found? Tears burned your eyes, but you refused to let them fall. What do you want? Nothing, he said simply. Like I said, I was just passing by. A bitter laugh escaped your lips. Then pass. He watched you for a moment longer, then with a small sigh, turned on his heel. All right, he said, walking away. You stared at his retreating figure, your chest feeling unexpectedly heavier. You didn't know why, but as his presence faded, the emptiness you had been trying to escape only seemed to grow. But then again, you heard his voice. I would get off that railing if I were you. You blinked. Why? He stopped, glancing over his shoulder. Because you don't want to die. You just don't want to go home. Your breath caught in your throat, and before you could say anything, he disappeared into the night. The night was colder than before, but something about that man's words burned into your mind. Because you don't want to die, you just don't want to go home. Who was he? You don't know. But after hearing those words, ending your remaining life felt absurd. You sat there staring at the dark waters below, your tears still fresh on your skin. The world was silent except for the sound of your own uneven breathing. You should leave. There was nothing left for you here. With trembling hands, you pushed yourself off the railing and stepped back onto the bridge. But just as you turned, he was there. The same man, leaning casually against a black car parked near the bridge, arms crossed over his chest as if he had all the time in the world. His eyes locked onto yours the moment you noticed him. A slow smirk tugged at his lips. Good girl. Your brows furrowed. Were you waiting for me? Waiting? He tilted his head. No, I was just curious. You said you were passing by. You reminded him not buying his act anymore. So why are you still here? He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he pushed himself off the car and took a step towards you. You stiffened, instinctively taking a step back. That only seemed to amuse him. You really want to know? He asked, voice softer now. You hesitated before nodding. He exhaled, eyes darkening just slightly. Because I know exactly what kind of man you are running from. Your heart skipped a beat. What? Jungkook, though you didn't know his name yet, studied your face carefully before sighing. Suho, right? Panic rose in your chest. How do you know? He raised a brow. You think a man like that doesn't have enemies? Your blood turned cold. Suho had enemies. Jungkook must have seen the fear flicker in your expression because he let out a low chuckle. Relax, sweetheart. I'm not here to hurt you. If I was, you'd already be in that river. Your hands clenched into fist. Don't call me that. He shrugged. Old habits. You took a deep breath. Who are you? Doesn't matter for now. Then what do you want from me? Nothing, but I think I know what you want. You swallowed, not daring to speak. You want to leave. You want to disappear. Your breath hitched, but you don't know how. And there it was, the truth you weren't ready to admit. A tear slipped down your cheek before you could stop it. Jungkook watched you carefully, his gaze unreadable. Then, to your shock, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. Call him. You blinked, confused. What? Call your husband. Tell him you're leaving right now. Your stomach twisted painfully. You couldn't. You weren't ready. But after tonight, you weren't sure if you wanted to live with that man anymore. Jungkook saw your hesitation and let out a small sigh. Or do you need him to say it to your face that he never loved you, that he wishes you were dead? The words stung, but they were the truth. Slowly, with shaking hands, you took out your phone. Jungkook nodded approvingly. Go on, let's see how much he really wants you. You hesitated for a long moment before pressing the call button. It rang once, twice, then. What the hell do you want? Your throat tightened. Suho, where are you? His voice was impatient, almost annoyed. Do you know how humiliating it is to have people ask about you at that party? You are ruining my night, Vian. You closed your eyes, inhaling sharply. You just couldn't see him the same way anymore. Jungkook remained silent, watching you closely. Come back now. Stop being dramatic. Dramatic. A bitter laugh bubbled in your throat. So, did you mean it? There was a pause. Mean what? When you said you wished I was dead? There was silence, a long, painful silence then. You heard that? Your body felt like it was made of ice. Look, Vian, I get it now. Wait, you don't love me. You never did. Vian, and I was a fool for ever thinking you could. And then you hung up. The phone slipped from your hands. You felt like you couldn't breathe. You felt like you couldn't breathe, your knees weakened, and before you could stumble, Jungkook's hand caught your arm. His grip was firm, steady. You looked up at him, vision blurred with tears. What now? His gaze was unreadable. You leave. He said simply, your lips parted. And go where? Anywhere but back to him. And for the first time in your life, you realized you had nothing left to lose. Maybe that was a good thing because it meant you could start over. And somehow you had a feeling this stranger, this dangerous, unreadable man was about to change your life forever. The cold wind bit into your skin as you stood there, phone still clutched in your trembling hand. Jungkook's words echoed in your head. You leave. But how? You were still married. You barely knew this man. Jungkook watched you carefully, his gaze dark as he studied your hesitation. You are scared? You swallowed hard. How come you know so much about me? I don't even know you. His lips twitched slightly. Fair enough, but I can't tell you right now. Silence stretched between you, then with a slow breath, he took a step closer, his voice calm, controlled. I'll ask you something. Answer honestly. You said nothing, so he continued. Do you want to go back to him? Your stomach twitched. No. Then the only question that matters is, are you ready to let him go? A lump formed in your throat. Were you? Could you walk away from a marriage that had long since died? Jungkook must have seen the war in your eyes because he sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. You don't have to trust me, Vian. Your breath hissed at the sound of your name on his lips. I'm not asking you to, but at least trust yourself. A tear slipped down your cheek. He was right. You had spent years doubting your own worth, waiting for Suho to love you the way you had loved him. But love shouldn't feel like this. It shouldn't make you feel unwanted. You exhaled shakily. Alright, I'll leave. Jungkook's eyes darkened, his expression unreadable. Good choice. But I need time. I have to handle this properly. I can't just disappear. A flicker of something passed through his gaze. He didn't like that idea, but he nodded. Fine, but until then, you don't go near him alone. You frowned. Why? Because Suho isn't the type to let go easily, and I don't like leaving things unfinished. Your heart skipped, unfinished, like you were something he had to protect now. Before you could question it, he glanced at his watch. It's late. Where do you want to go? You hesitated. I'll book a hotel for tonight. Jungkook's expression hardened. Not alone. You raised a brow. And why is that? Because I have a feeling Soho will be looking for you. A chill ran down your spine. You don't know why you were believing this stranger, but it felt right. Jungkook saw it and sighed. I'll stay in the same hotel, different room. You bit your lip, hesitant. Why are you doing this? He held your gaze. Let's just say I don't like men like your husband. There was something about the way he said it, cold, firm, final, that made you realize this wasn't just about you. Jungkook had a reason for stepping into your life tonight, and you had a feeling you weren't ready to hear what it was. The next morning, you sat in the hotel lobby staring at your untouched coffee. Sleep had been impossible. Your phone buzzed. 20 missed calls, 5 messages from Suho. You inhaled sharply, your fingers hovered over the screen before finally tapping on the latest message. Come back home, Ryan. Don't make this ugly. Ugly. You let out a bitter laugh. It had been ugly for years. Still thinking about him? You flinched. Jungkook slid into the seat across from you, dressed in all black, a cup of coffee in his hand. You sighed. I have to see him. Jungkook's jaw clenched. No, you don't. Yes, I do, you said firmly. I have to tell him I'm leaving in person. His fingers tapped against the coffee cup, his gaze unreadable. Then I'm coming with you. Your brows furrowed. That's not necessary. It is. His voice left no room for argument. You don't know what he's capable of when he feels like he's losing control. A strange feeling crept up your spine. How do you know that? Jungkook held her gaze for a long moment before leaning forward slightly. I know men like Suho, Hyen. You swallowed, but you didn't push further. You weren't ready for answers yet. Later that evening, you stood outside your house, no, Suho's house. Your heart was pounding against your ribs. Jungkook was next to you, leaning against his car, his presence solid and steady. You sure about this? He asked, and you nodded. I have to be. You could have never done this alone. Jungkook's presence was giving you strength, even though he was a stranger. With a deep breath, you stepped inside. Suho was already waiting. His suit was perfect as always, but his face was twisted in frustration. The moment he saw you, his jaw clenched. Where the hell were you? You didn't flinch. We need to talk. Suho's eyes flickered with something dangerous. Then talk. Your stomach twisted. He didn't look worried that you were missing all night. He was angry. I want a divorce. The words left her mouth before you could hesitate. There was silence for some time. Suho blinked once, twice, then he laughed. Divorce? Are you out of your mind? Is this a joke? Your fist clenched. No. His expression darkened. And you think I'll let you leave? A slow dread built in your chest. Who are you to even stop me? And I'm not asking for permission. Suho's lips curled in amusement. Ah, I see. His gaze flickered to the door. Is this about that man? Your breath hissed. What? The one who's been following you. Your blood ran cold. Suho smirked. You think I didn't notice? How long have you been screwing him? Your fist clenched. I see very clearly now. You see the world the way you are. Not everyone is a cheater like you, Suho. His eyes widened and you knew he understood. Secretly wishing for my death and planning to marry your ex, you think I wouldn't find out? Are you out of your mind? No, now I'm in my right mind and I'm setting you free. I don't want a man who treats me like a disposable thing. His grip tightened on your wrist. Don't forget I'm still your husband. Tell me, what did he promise you? Before you could speak, let her go. Suho froze. You turned, catching your breath. Jungkook stood in the doorway, his expression calm, but his eyes, they were scary. Suho's jaw clenched. Who the hell do you think you are? Jungkook tilted his head slightly, his voice eerily soft. I'm the man who will break your damn hand if you don't let go of her in 3 seconds. Your heart pounded. Suho's grip faltered for just a second before he scoffed, shoving you away. Fine, take her. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. That easy? Suho smirked. She'll come back. Your stomach twisted. Come out of your fantasy because I won't. I'm filing for divorce. Suho's smirk faded, but you didn't wait for his response. You turned on your heels, walking past Jungkook and out of that house for the last time. The night air hit your face and you felt lighter. Jungkook followed you silently. When you reached his car, he finally spoke. You okay? You let out a shaky breath. Not yet. He studied you for a moment before nodding. You will be. And strangely, you believed him because maybe, just maybe, your new life was starting and somehow Jungkook was a part of it. But your happiness has no time to stay, especially after knowing that you don't have much time in your hands. Jungkook's voice brought you back in reality. Where do you want to go? You looked at him. I don't know. He nodded as if he expected that. Then, after a moment, he said, Are you hungry? The question caught you off guard. You blinked at him. What? He shrugged. You just ended a marriage? Pretty sure that deserve a meal. You let out a breathy laugh, more out of disbelief than amusement. You are unbelievable. Jungkook smiled. So I've been told. For the first time that night, the weight in your chest felt just a little lighter. An hour later, you found yourself sitting in a quiet restaurant, a steaming bowl of ramen in front of you. You poked at it absent-mindedly. Jungkook watched you, his chopsticks resting against his bowl. You should eat, you sighed. I'm not that hungry. Try. You glanced up at him, meeting his steady gaze. There was something about the way he looked at you, calm, unwavering, that made it hard to argue. So you picked up your chopsticks and took a small bite. Jungkook smirked. Good girl. You nearly choked. Excuse me. His smirk widened. Nothing. You rolled your eyes, but the corner of your lips twitched. For a while, the two of you ate in silence. Then, out of nowhere, Jungkook asked, Do you regret it? You looked up. Regret what? Marrying him. Your breath caught. You hadn't expected that. You hesitated before answering. That day when you got married to him flashed in front of your eyes, and it was difficult that time too. But you thought you'll make it work. I regret not leaving soon. Jungkook nodded as if he understood. And now? You swallowed. Now I don't know who I am without him. Jungkook leaned back, studying you. You'll figure it out. You let out a dry laugh. And if I don't? He shrugged. Then I'll remind you. Your stomach flipped. Something about the way he said it, so certain, so confident, unsettled you. You weren't used to people sticking around. You weren't used to people choosing you. You quickly looked away, pretending to focus on your food. No, you were done pretending. You lifted your gaze, locking eyes with him. Why did you help me? Jungkook's fingers froze around his glass. You pressed further. I don't know you. I just learned your name today. So why did you do all this for me? Jungkook took a slow sip of his drink before placing it down carefully. Does it matter? Of course it matters. People don't just help strangers like this. Maybe I do. You shook your head. No one does. Jungkook exhaled through his nose, a ghost of a smirk on his lips. You ask a lot of questions, and you avoid them. His smirk widened. Maybe I just like watching you figure things out. Jungkook, you said firmly. Tell me. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. The amusement in his eyes faded, replaced by something unreadable. Because I know what it feels like to be trapped, to feel like you have no way out, no one to turn to. Someone helped me once, now it's my turn. You swallowed, so this is just you paying it forward? He tilted his head. Does it bother you? Yes, because it felt like more. Like he knew you, like he had known you for longer than a few hours. Your fingers curled around your fork. You said something earlier about Suho, about how you know him. Jungkook didn't blink. You searched his expression. How do you know him? A beat of silence, then, like I said, you'll figure it out. But something inside you clenched at those words. You were tired of figuring things out, tired of running in circles, trying to understand why people treated you the way they did. A bitter chuckle left your lips as you shook your head. Fine. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. Fine. You put your fork down, leaning back in your chair. Yeah, I don't want to figure anything out anymore, and I don't even have that much time to figure out anything. His expression shifted slightly. You helped me, you continued, and for that I owe you. But from here, I would like to figure out my life on my own. Jungkook didn't respond immediately, and for a moment you thought he might argue, but then he simply exhaled, fingers drumming against the table. Fair enough. He finally said, You expected him to push, to insist on being involved. Instead, he gave you exactly what you asked for. And that unsettled you more than anything else. But you didn't want to think about this stranger anymore. You wanted to live the remaining days of your life figuring out yourself.